Welcome, listeners, to Days at Dogwood Canyon. I have a special guest with me today, and I am going to let him introduce himself.
Hi there, my name's Jonathan Young. I'm the Habitat and Working Lands Program Manager for Audubon Delta, and I run our Native Habitat to Invigorate Ecosystems project, or NATIVE project.
Well, that sounds very exciting. Now that you've said that, can you explain exactly what this NATIVE program is?
Yeah, so I am in Arkansas, and we have been doing this program for over 13 years now. I can never remember. It's been a long time. But we, a long time ago, identified a bottleneck in some of the restoration work that was going on for our grassland restorations in the state, and that was a lack of available, regionally appropriate seed materials for these restoration projects that all of these different agencies and nonprofits wanted to do. And so we started initially working on it was a program called the White River Irrigation Project, and it serviced the eastern Arkansas from the White River and took levees out across all these farms that used to go across the historic Grand Prairie. And there was about 450,000 acres of prairie in the spot historically, grassland bird habitat, that sort of a thing. And we have less than 400 acres of it left now. And this project gave an opportunity to make sort of connective tissue across the prairie of these arteries of native warm season grasses that we're going to plant on these levees. And we wanted to use the ones that were naturally occurring historically in the Grand Prairie. So that's how we got actually started doing this. Let's see, that was actually 2012. So what's that, 14 years ago, 2011, something like that.
Yeah.
So, we started doing that, and we started working with farmers. The idea being that we would work with state agencies and partners to go collect the seeds, volunteers and things like that, and then grow them out on farms for use on these restoration projects. That theme still permeates the program to this day, and that's really kind of one of our main goals. But in about 2017, we came to this conference, the conference I'm at right now, the National Native Seed Conference. That one was in DC. This one's in Tucson this week. And me and some of the state agency folks were all here, and we realized, wow, we really need to step up our game and get into more than just these four grasses, right? There's so much more to a prairie and to restoration than, these four grasses that we're growing for this one project. There's so much more opportunity, not just in the Grand Prairie, but all over the state of Arkansas. So with that, we started expanding. We went to an eco-regional approach, and we worked with the state to help write its native seed plan. We worked with a lot of the agency folks and ecologists to figure out where in the state we could come up with these called seed transfer zones, which, sort of think about it as a place like if I was to pick a plant here or pick a seed here, I can put it back in the ground here. It's going to do just as well in this spot as it will in this region, right? And that has a lot to do with natural barriers, soils, weather. There's a lot of factors in that. So we helped get all that together, and simultaneously, we started collecting wildflower seed and working with historically underserved farmers to grow this stuff out at scale. So we have now 4 different ecoregions. We've got 10 farmers, and they're growing this in sort of row crop style production. That is 2 things. One, it makes the seed available for restoration professionals that want to do grassland restorations for birds and everything else in the state. And 2, it helps those farmers sort of diversify their income. You get all kinds of on-farm benefits, ecological benefits, soil benefits, all that sort of stuff from having these crops on your farm, right? So it helps in a lot of it. So they have an income stream. They have, all of these ecological benefits. They have a lot more wildlife on their farms. And we've gotten some really great farmers over the years that have helped us scale this stuff up and start growing it out across the state. We're trying to expand. We're looking to expand now into Mississippi and Louisiana. We don't have the funding ready to go just yet for that, but that's in the plans. It's in the works. We're trying to expand those to those other 2 states. But yeah, so 2017, we really switched gears. We started diversifying, spreading out, getting more into wildflowers. And then we have about 20 species now altogether, multiple ecoregions of a lot of those growing in state. We work with, a litany of partners, Arkansas Game and Fish Commission and Arkansas Natural Heritage Commission, USDA is our NRCS is our primary funders of this over the years. A bunch of different kinds of grants supported this work over the last 12 to 14 years. And we've worked with Roundstone Native Seed out of Kentucky. And essentially we set it up, it's sort of a co-op arrangement between the farmers and Roundstone, and they sell the seed. Roundstone sells the seed for the farmers, gets it into mixes, does all the cleaning, storage, testing. So it's just like any other seed that you buy from any other commercial, seed source. So we want to have good seed for the end user as well. So does that sort of, it's sort of the high level of it. There's a lot more detail I could go into, but we really enjoy the program, really enjoy working with our farmers. They're really incredible people. They do a lot of great work every year. When I get back to Little Rock, I'm going to finish threshing some of this seed and getting it packed up to travel. And then I'll make it's about a 7.5 hour drive over to Kentucky and drop all that stuff off for our farmers so that they can get cleaned and get out on the market. So
that's very cool. Yes, excellent. That gives us a very good overview of what this is. I have just a few questions.
Mm-hmm.
So these are all native seeds to a specific area. Why is it that it's better, or I guess the question is it better to have a seed that is planted in Arkansas and grown there and then reused in Arkansas? Why can't I just use one of the same kind of, like I'm doing little blue stem or something like that? Why can't I just use a little blue stem from another part of the country?
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's a lot of great seed materials on the market. I'm not saying that any of them are subpar or not usable in any area. But one of the things we want to do is source the seed that you're using to restore from as close to the area as it's feasible, right? There's always this weird line we run into between like the production end of things and then like the ecologist end of things. The ecologist is like, I want it from here, I want it from this slope, and I want it from this soil type, and I want it from this. And that, like, the reality, the market realities of that are not often very rosy for a farmer. So like that's why we have this eco-regional approach where it's like, okay, so this seed that comes out of here, we know that it was sourced in the Ozarks of Arkansas. The Ozarks broadly have very similar soil types. They have very similar weather, all that sort of stuff. The seed that you're collecting from there has been there for thousands and thousands of years, adapting to those conditions. Even though it's the same species as something sourced out of, let's just say, Western Kansas or Canada or Florida, that plant is not going to be as well adapted to your site when it comes from that far away, right? Especially when you start going north-south, it starts to talk to bloom time, things like that. West to east also matters, but north-south really matters a lot faster. So these seed materials, as much diversity as we can have in the genetics of these mixes on the landscape, the more resilient our restorations are going to be, right? And that's the same with little blue stem as it is with a lot of these wildflowers as well. We're getting to very deep waters, very, very quick on that. But yeah, it's essentially, the closer it comes from where you're at, the more likely it is to be adapted to your conditions, even though it's the same species. Doesn't necessarily mean that it won't grow here if it's from, several hours west, but it's not probably going to be as resilient to, like in Arkansas, we've got some crazy weather. I mean, we go from extreme drought to extremely wet conditions to single degree, 0 degree temperatures to 120 degree temperatures all in the same year sometimes. Um, and our plants, just like everything that's grown here historically, are used to that weather, they're used to that soil, they're used to all these challenges that we have on our sites here. Um,
Okay.
And then, even within Arkansas, we have different ecotypes. So we have something for the Ozarks in the northwest corner of the state, which is mountainous and rocky. And we have same species in the southwest corner of the state where we have blackland prairies coming up into the corner of Arkansas, southwest corner of Arkansas, that are really rich soil, chalk and marl underneath them. And we have a different ecotype for the Grand Prairie, which is Mississippi alluvial, soils with a clay pan underneath. It's just a lot of diversity on the landscape. So you have to have as many types of genetic background of these seed materials as you feasibly can.
All right. Just gives them a better chance of actually taking and growing, right?
Yeah. And surviving long term. Yeah.
Excellent. All right. So another question, you said you had 20 species of plants that you're working with right now. What made
it varies season to season. Some things come, some things go. We plant things drop off. So I don't have a list right in front of me, but some good examples of things that we've had for a long time. Liatris pycnostachya, the prairie blazing star, Echinacea pallida, pale purple coneflower, Missouri ironweed, Baptisia bracteata, or the long spike Baptisia, cream wild indigo. Some people call it other names.
What made you pick these particular flowers?
So a lot of them were sort of the backbones, and this is in addition to the grasses. We're still growing grasses.
Okay.
There's sort of the backbone species of what we see in these different areas. So I have some different species, like in Southwest Arkansas, we'll have things like Missouri orange coneflower that's really dominant. A lot of Indian grass and little blue stem and echinacea down there. Whereas in the Grand Prairie, you see a lot more Rudbeckia grandiflora, different species of Rudbeckia. So we have more of that over there. It's the rough coneflower. Ashy sunflower or downy sunflower, Helianthus mollis. And gosh, a bunch. We got a bunch more. But those are some indicator ones, that are kind of indicative ones. And like I said, we have to look at a lot of things when we're picking these plants. We're having to farm these things.
Right.
Not all native plants really lend themselves to farming very well. I'm not going to say no native plants do ultimately, but some are much easier to deal with. Others, things that seed at the top, are easier to deal with than things that seed at the sides on the bottom. Things that, hold on to their seed well, don't tend to shatter off quite as fast. They all shatter off. Don't get me wrong. They all shatter off when you're trying to harvest them. But some hold a little tighter than others, which allows you to get the seed. And we have all manner of equipment that we've purchased, built, and all that sort of stuff to help the farmers. There's a lot of equipment sharing between the farmers that we facilitate. Nice. And then, nothing really beats just a good old bucket and a set of nippers sometimes to just go out and hand collect. Even at some scales that we're doing it now, it's still more efficient to hand collect it than it is to lose it all in a machine process. I sat through a 3.5 hour production primer yesterday with this National Native Seed Conference. And I was like, yeah, they touched the high points. There's a lot to know. And so the training is part of what we offer to a lot of these farmers. And I still learn something new every day doing this. It's really a lot to know about producing native seed because it's such a broad, broad palette of species out there that you have to learn to accommodate and harvest and grow and all that sort of thing. So
that's very cool. So this sounds very exciting to me, and I am just a regular homeowner. If I was a farmer in this area in Arkansas right now, or in what you said, Louisiana, and where else were you trying to?
Mississippi,
Louisiana. So if I'm a farmer in any of those areas, how do I find out some more information if I want to participate in this program?
So at this very moment, we're not taking new farmers, but I would always happy to talk to farmers and put them on the list for the next, when the sort of the next round of funding comes through and we decide to expand and all that sort of things. But you would email me. It's, I put my email on here. It's jyoung@audubon.org. And I'm happy to talk to you about your farm and sort of line out the process of how this all works and set your expectations. One of the things that I'm really a stickler about with this program is setting expectations from the get-go, both for, us not, investing a lot of stuff in somebody really not knowing what they're getting into.
Right.
But more than that is that we have fewer and fewer small farmers every year. And we have more and more difficult markets and weather and all that sort of stuff every year with our farmers. And I try to do my best to make sure that we're not setting people up for failure. We want to make sure that they're successful in this because it's people's livelihoods a lot of times we're dealing with. We have to be very serious about the approach that we take when we're doing this. So we work, like I said, with Roundstone Native Seed in Kentucky. They've been a great partner. Anybody can research them if you'd like. They have just incredible work ethic and ethos. And I can't speak highly enough about John and Jeremy and Tyler and all those folks over there. But yeah, we wouldn't be able to do this, I don't think, without partners like them to help sell the seed and help me work with our farmers. But yeah, just email me and I'm happy to talk to you about it.
Excellent. Well, Jonathan, I can't tell you how excited I was to talk to you about this program. It sounds so cool. And I will put links in our show notes as well on how to reach you and how to look at Audubon Delta's website and also Roundstone Native. I want to put theirs so people can contact them also. And I just want to thank you so much for coming on our podcast and talking to us about your work today.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm glad to spread the word about native seed, the good bird word about native seed.
Excellent.